A lot of people may not know, but I spent a very quick stint in the FBI as a chemist in their forensic lab. But it was so short that I don't think I really have any true lessons learned to go ahead and draw from that. So I'd really like to start with my tenure at DHS. Essentially, I came into TSA at the stand-up before DHS even existed. And I took the experience that I had in mergers and acquisitions from the private sector. When I got the call, they said, okay, this is the biggest merger and acquisition in government history outside of DOD, so how would you like to come participate in that? And I felt that my skill set was a good fit, so I moved over to TSA to do that stand-up. Now, what I learned there was the battle rhythm and the pace of a stand-up of a new organization from scratch is huge. You'll never see anything like it. If you have a chance to experience it in your lifetime, you ought to definitely take the plunge, because you learn so much in doing something like that that I would encourage anybody, even if it seems daunting, if you hear the call to do something of that nature, please join the fray, because it is definitely worth it for your own development. I parlayed what I did at TSA with that stand-up into the stand-up of DHS. So I was asked to go to the department and to determine what should be done to stand up the DHS version of a headquarters. And from that, I was asked to, once that was stood up, to start looking at, okay, now how do we mature it? How do we improve it? How do we do rationalization? How do we do consolidation? How do we do process improvements? How do we make it a truly functioning and constantly innovative and constantly maturing organization as we go forward? And that was really the infrastructure transformation program, which I helped to start, which continues today and has many parts and pieces to it that are actually in alignment with the federal strategy, including data center consolidation, network consolidation, cloud first, shared first, all of those aspects. And one that I'm going to talk about a little later around mobility, which is really my passion right now. Those things all came together in the office of the CIO at DHS. And I've been privileged to take that journey with a set of people that are hugely dedicated to the mission of DHS. I'm proud to be associated with them on a daily basis. There's nothing more passionate than a person that works at DHS committed to the mission. We know why we're there. We know we're there to protect the homeland. And I often say, we don't really deliver IT, we deliver homeland security. Because IT, in any shape and form, is what's needed to actually enable the delivery of the mission. So I would say the key points to remember when you're in that type of situation that I drew from my experience in these last few years is to constantly engage your stakeholders, know what your roadmap is, know where you're going, take your leadership capability and have it evolve and change and become a little more nuanced to respond to the situation at the moment. So if you look at the journey that we've taken at DHS and this maturation that I'm talking about, at every step along the way there was something that needed to be accomplished, something that needed to be done on that roadmap. But it required a little bit of a different skill set and a little bit of a different leadership style every time. What you do to stand up an organization overnight is a little bit different than what you're doing today to actually put the processes and maturation behind it so that it's a constantly sustained organization going forward and it's constantly improving. So the engagement with the stakeholders to know what that roadmap should look like, the constant interaction with your partners, I would say with our CFO, with our CPO, with our mission space CIOs, with the business owners and the mission space owners within our components, that constant interaction to know what the requirement is and to go and deliver. That's really what I would take away from that experience. I truly believe in the concept of constantly being curious, lifelong learning. It doesn't even have to be in your own field. Some of the things that you learned about ancillary fields or fields that you have to work with in order to execute your job are just as important as what you know in your own space. The ability to jump swim lanes, and what I mean by that is, if you look at the trajectory of my career, I started out as a nuclear chemist. And I worked in the environmental field. I worked in environmental cleanup. I worked in consulting. I worked with primarily with utility companies, pharmaceutical companies. Then, as that evolved, I went into mergers and acquisitions in the finance arena, actually putting those companies together and making them work in a post-merger integration situation. So how did I transition from one to the other? I was actually a scientist in a lab working on a daily basis. And did I go back and get some additional education? Of course I did. I went back and got an MBA. But in actuality, you have to have the confidence to know that you're not going to be necessarily in the same field as you go forward, and you can't be afraid of that. So I was not afraid to switch fields, but I brought to it what I had learned from the previous experience that I had in the scientific community. And so I worked with clients that were in those kinds of companies, and therefore I could talk their language, gain their trust. But what I was trying to do for them was no longer science. It became more like finance and post-merger integration and business process reengineering. Then if you take that one step further, as IT started to evolve, what is one of the first things that you have to do when you are entering a post-merger integration? The first thing you have to do is to look at your infrastructure and your IT systems that support it, understand where you want the combined companies to go, and start making that transformation. So I switched to IT, and again, went and got additional education, switched to IT, and incorporated that into what I would consider to be a holistic business approach to post-merger integration. So you have subject matter expertise in the business that a company or an agency is trying to execute, in this case the mission of DHS. Then you have financial information and financial capability in knowing how to run business processes and how to line up the money and you know, on the commercial side, it's about profitability. On the DHS side, it's about mission delivery and effective use of taxpayer money. And then moving on from that, how do you best integrate all of those into a holistic approach to moving an organization forward? So early on, I learned to go ahead and ask for the odd assignment, jump in even if it wasn't in my swim lane, and to not be afraid to be constantly curious and learn new things, because you never, ever know it all in any way, shape, or form. I would take that to heart, and kind of looking at a consulting mechanism that I've used my whole life, and that is you're facing a challenging problem. The problem has many aspects, and it's fairly large. Break it down into individual modules of questions you can ask and answers you can find and data you can put against it and analytics you can perform in order to solve the smaller modules of the problem. And if you can do that, then you'll know your analysis of alternatives for each one of those pieces, and you can put it together in an integrated model after the fact. So you go and you seek the experts. For every aspect of the problem, you go and you seek the expert. You gather the information, you do the analytics, you determine what your alternatives are, and then you put together your integrated solution from that set of alternatives. Once you do that, then I would say that the other part of the equation that you have to make sure of is that you're constantly communicating with your leadership as you're walking down this pathway, that you're doing checkpoints, that you're saying, you know, is this going on the right path? Is this what you're looking for? interim products, interim milestones, points where you can adjust your approach so that you make sure when you get to the end of the process that you have the appropriate product, and also what you can get from that, or what you can gain from that as you do that constant interaction, is the air cover, for want of a better term. The leadership support. They know what you're doing, they know you're on the right path, there's a trust that's developed there, and they can see that the product is going to come out on the other side and it's going to be effective and useful. You never know what is going to stick with you over the duration of your career, and it may be something that you heard just in a passing conversation or a moment of encouragement, and it could be very early on in your career. And this one actually happened to me very early on in my career. I was working in a firm, and I was moving a project forward, and I was running into some delays and some obstacles, primarily associated with what I would consider to be change management and cultural change and the people aspect of a major transformation, which is always a challenge in any environment. And my boss pulled me aside, could see I was getting somewhat frustrated, because he knew I like to move out, and I like to get things done, I like to check the box, I like to get it done. And his comment to me was, I can see you're kind of struggling here. I think you think that you need authority and control, but in actuality you will never have complete authority or control, but you will always have influence. And the word influence has stuck with me from that conversation throughout my career since that day. And how I've incorporated that into my thinking is that influence comes in many forms. The first thing you have to develop in order to have influence is credibility and trust. And you do that through open communication, through transparency, through collaboration with your stakeholders and your partners, and also ultimately through delivery. If you are a notable person in your field, if you have that constant curiosity, if you do your homework, if you're up to date on the latest and greatest opportunities, and you are noted as a person who works with other individuals to solve problems and is less concerned about the credit and the ownership than you would be with the outcome and the actual execution, then that's the kind of person that I want to work with. And if you make yourself become that kind of person, then you're going to be the person that's sought after for the team, and you're going to be the person that has the credibility in the room, and all of a sudden the doors start to open because you have influence. You can make things happen. You can be a part of the change. You can help others see themselves in the change and get through that cultural divide that sometimes keeps good ideas from moving forward. Good ideas are I would argue that they never get held back forever, but they can be stymied at some points along the way because people are either afraid of the change, don't understand the change, or they don't see themselves in the change. And if you can master the ability to work those issues in a team or a group, you can usually move forward. So that one word, influence, is really what triggered my thinking. It changed my thinking, and it put me on a path where I started to incorporate that and say, okay, if I'm in this situation now and I'm a little frustrated, what's my influence? How do I exercise my influence in a positive manner to make this move? I think probably the most important aspect of constantly developing your career is the networking aspect. there are a number of ways you can do this. You do this by working with individuals over time, and they come to know you, and you have worked together on projects. You have probably served together on panels. You have faced thorny problems individually, and you've called each other up and talked through issues on the phone, gotten sage advice from each other. Those kinds of people you touch base with and keep in your collaboration space throughout your entire career. I have people that I still contact that technically I haven't worked with in 20 years. But those are individuals that I know, I follow them, I know that they've advanced through the field. They are doing different things than I have done, so they might have a different take on issues or problems and approaches. So I always keep in contact with the network. I would do this in an effective manner because you said tools. There's an approach called developing an influence diagram. Back to that word influence. But when you look at how corporations operate, how agencies operate, how businesses operate, the way the organizational chart lays out isn't necessarily how things get executed. So again, know those people in your universe that regardless of title, it could be the most junior individual in your organization, regardless of title, that person has a nugget of truth, and they can bring that forward, and keep those people in your sphere of networking. You can do this through your natural work progress. You could do this through volunteering. Always volunteer for organizations in your field that are changing the way things get done in that field, because you will get the benefit of the most forward thinking. You will get the benefit of the brainstorming and the discussions, and it will constantly keep you fresh. It also allows you to expose yourself to opportunities that might not have existed if you hadn't traveled in those spheres. So not a good idea to stay in your cube, to stay in your office, to think that internet research is going to get you there, though that is an aspect of it. I do believe in people staying abreast of what is going on in their field, but really the interaction with your peer group and with those who have gone before. If you asked for mentorship, which is what this program is all about, if you ask to make good use of that individual's time by, hey, can I shadow you for a day? I have a set of questions that are really burning in my mind right now at this stage of my career. Could I just get some feedback on what you did at this stage of your career? Or I want to move to the next level, or eventually I want to gain access to the type of role that you're in today. And can I shadow you? Can I see how that's done? For example, can I see how a governance board is done at your level? I may participate in those with my peers at my level, doing the type of work I do today. But I want to aspire to what that looks like in the next progression. If I can do that, I would like you to mentor me to do that. I have done that for a number of individuals. I have made myself available, and I absolutely would encourage people to do that, to talk to those who come forward and ask me those types of questions. I schedule the time for them. It is not an imposition. I consider it as part of the development of the organization as a whole. Don't be fearful. You may not get to the person right away. They may have to schedule you in, so you may have to be a little patient because things do get a little busy sometimes, but generally people will always come back to you. They want you to develop. They want you to be that next set of leadership. They want to leave the continuity behind so that when they step out into whatever endeavor that they are going to pursue next, that the organization is strong, it continues, and it evolves. I'd like to put this in the context of something that I recently did that I did with some colleagues from DHS. 4 women that are senior executives in the IT space within DHS. What we offered to do is we formed a panel and we participated in the Grace Hopper event that is held yearly. And the Grace Hopper event, if you don't know who Grace Hopper is, she was one of the original female IT executives in the Department of the Navy. So she was responsible for probably the first evolution, along with others, of supercomputers. So the reach back to the younger IT community coming up is so hugely important, to let them know what the federal government has to offer. And a lot of the folks that were there were from private industry, so we felt it was really relevant for us to come forward and say, what are the opportunities in the federal government for an IT professional? And I have seen what's available at our agency and what's available at other agencies throughout the federal government is that you're given a lot of responsibility at a younger and earlier time in your career than I have seen in private sector. There's the sense of the mission and the constantly expanding mission and the way it drives the people who deliver that mission at the agencies. They're looking for talent. They're looking for people to step in and step up. Particularly if you look at things within DHS, some of those fields are nascent and rapidly expanding, particularly the area of cybersecurity. And tremendous opportunities there. The gentleman that runs our SOC and is now moved up to the CISO at CBP is barely into his 30s. Has been given all along the way any kind of responsibility that he could accept and readily wanted to pursue was given to him. And he continued to flow up the ladder very rapidly. The sheer breadth of the issues that we face means there are constantly opening opportunities as you go along. Being able to position yourselves yourself in a large agency like ours is something that you can do and see the pathway forward. You're not looking at the set of people above you and saying, well, if those people ever leave, I'm gonna, you can go sideways, you can go this way, you can go into a different field, you can, there's so much work and such good work and such constantly changing work that the opportunities are opening up. So I think for a young person, you are given a set of responsibility earlier than you would see in private sector.